Hello there survivors, and welcome back to another building tutorial in ARK Survival Ascended. Today I'm going to show you how to build this Rex breeding pen that definitely has some very strong Jurassic Park visitor center vibes. This is the perfect base if you're looking for a big place to safely do all of your breeding, specifically for Rexes of course, although most creatures will easily fit inside. You have a big compound around, so you have a lot of room to safely park some of your tames, especially if you add some turrets to your base of course. And then you have two main breeding bays on the side of the building that should be big enough to have a few Rexes inside, or maybe even some bigger creatures if you wanted to. And then in the middle we have everything for the hatching of eggs and all the other things that you might need whilst breeding and taming. Then on the roof you'll find plenty of space to park your flyers as well as your main base. So a circular base addition on the top where you can have all of your crafting, storage, and of course your living quarters as well. As always, if you enjoy seeing these build tutorials and you want to see more, make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course like the video, really helps me out a lot. And if you want to show even more support, you can always of course consider becoming a YouTube member. Before we start the build, if you would like to see any other breeding facilities or breeding pens for specific creatures, leave your suggestions for creatures or just future builds in general down in the comments below. And of course we start with a foundation, and you want to make sure you have a decent amount of flat space to work with to make it easier. We want to go 8 wide here to start with, so just like this. And then it's going to be 15 long in total. So just like this, we add 15. And then, of course, this is going to be 8 wide again in total. Just like that. And then we should be able to make it meet back up at the end. So we have the first of the 2 breeding bays done. Then here on the inside, we want to go in by 2, and then we can go across by 6 in total. So just like this, and then we can once again bring out this line, which is going to be 15 long, which is where we're going to be starting the second breeding bay. And then here on the other side, of course, we can also make sure that we have these 6 going across again, 2 from the end of these bays. This one, of course, is also going to be 8 across. And then it's just a matter of continuing this, so 15 long to continue and finish up the shape that we need for the 2 big breeding bays, as well as the middle section for the hatching, maybe a little bit of your storage, as well as the staircase up to the top. And once we've laid out these shapes, of course, we want to start filling in these foundations. Now, for the main building, this is going to be pretty much the footprint that you need. We will have a very small amount of tiny additions to the side. And then, of course, afterwards, we'll lay out the boundary for the rest of the compound so that you kind of know what kind of shape you will need. And you can see if it all fits in the area that you've chosen to build at. Although definitely for the compound, there's other ways also to get around with making more varied landscapes work. So for now, we just want to fill in all of the foundations for these different sections so that we don't have to worry about that anymore. And we have our big breeding facility or our breeding pen ready. So that's the middle one, and only this side one we want, of course, add in all the foundations here as well, going around just like that, following the entire shape from one side to the next, just filling it all in. There we go, and almost done. It's a little bit overgrown here, but we'll not worry about that today. For these big breeding pens, we actually want to add one here on the corner and another one over there on that corner, and we're going to do that for both sides of this building. There we go. We can also do these. And then actually here in the middle, you want to take out these front 6. And we're going to slightly change those up. You want to take out your quarter foundations, add 2 over there, add 2 more over there. And then you can once again fill in the middle. So now it should be 5 in the middle. And we're going to do the same thing here on the other side where the entrance is going to be. So again, 2 little quarter foundations on both ends, and then you can fill in the middle with the 5 foundations so that the snap points work. Then over here at the side, we want to find the middle. And then if you found the middle, you want to go out by 4 in total before you can make a square that is a 3x3 shape. There we go. Then we can go out by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in total before we make another one of these squares. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and another one of those squares over here. And of course, you can determine yourself whether you want to make this bigger or smaller, but in my case, I had at least 1 more of these sections, so 6 more over here, and then we're gonna get another square. Now, if the landscape doesn't let you place everything, it's not the end. You can easily fill that up with just making the wall stick out longer. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over here with another square right over there. And then of course on the other side of the building we want to do the same. So we want to find the middle and then add 4 before we add our square in over here 2. And then once again we're going to go for 6 before we add in another square over here. And then we want to continue that same pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then add the square of 3x3, and then another one here of 6, and then another square. Of course, you might have to clear out a fair bit of landscape. And then, of course, from this corner, we're going to go in by 6, just like this, before we add another one of those 3x3 squares. And then here we have like the middle. We want to make the main entrance, of course. What you want to do is add 2 foundations on each ends of these squares. Now the gap that is in the middle should be big enough for a behemoth gate. And of course you can make it yourself easy and just place the foundations all the way through, but then you have to raise your gate basically. It's going to be on top of those foundations, and I want to try and basically place it in the middle of these foundations just like this, so that instead of having to go onto the foundation and then off again, I do not have anything right here in the middle. So I'm just lining it up until it fits in between. You might have to do a few attempts, but usually you should be able to do. Otherwise, if you do want to do it on ramps, yeah, you probably, or on foundations, you might want to have some ramps to get in and out so your dinos can still easily walk over it. And then, of course, we can add in the big gate. But then at least we know how big the compound is going to be. Of course, you can play around with the size of this. If you want it bigger, you want it smaller, you can easily do that. But this is going to be the foundation for the main building, as well as the wall around the compound. All right, we'll start here at the back of the building. We'll bring out our pillars and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up in total. And then, of course, we can do the same thing here over on the other corner. We can, of course, connect them to the ground below as well, because that looks a little bit nicer. And then over here on the other side of the building, we want to, of course, do the same thing. So once again, we're going to bring up these pillars by 6 in total. Now, I'm building this out of metal because it's nice and strong. But of course, if you do not want to use custom cosmetics, maybe a stone look would be nicer. Technically, if you're going to use custom cosmetics, you could build it out of anything you want. Then we want to bring out our beams and we want to go across from one side to the other here. So we'll do that on both sides, of course, bringing the beam across. Then we'll go down by 1 and we'll bring another beam going across to the other side. So yeah, just like this, we want to add in all these beams going across from one side to the other. It's a little bit more complicated, but yeah, we should still be able to do it. And just bring this beam across from one side to the other. Just like that. And then we want to have pillars again, and we want to fill in these pillars just like this. Same thing over here on the other side. There we go. So that is the structure that we want to get started with. Then for the walls, we want to place 2 walls here at the end of the extra foundations that we placed. So 2 walls on the end, just like this. And we can actually also add them to the side here. So we want to just make sure that we kind of fill in these little corners. Now, these corners are going to be perfect to place down some extra storage, cryo fridges, generators, stuff like that, because they're easy little cupboards. We want to take out those slope walls and then bring this back into the main structure like this. There we go. So on every one of these, we'll place one of those. And then we'll have some roofs on top to bring it completely back into the main structure. There we go. Then we can actually continue this wall up all the way. So just like that on both of these corners. We're going to do the same thing, of course, here on the other side of the build. So just these ones, we're going to fill in all the way to the top. And then for this wall, we want to just go around the outside for now. So just filling in the outside layers of the build, going around like that. And then we can fill in the middle too as well. And then we can have pillars along the side of what is going to be some windows to let in some nice light at the back. So that is what we want. Of course, we can then repeat the process over here on the other side of the building. So once again, we're going to start going around the outside by filling in all of these walls, and then fill in the middle to all the way, and then circulate around where we're gonna have some big windows. Now, if you're not going to use cosmetics, you probably want to use greenhouse glass for this. If you are going to use cosmetics, it doesn't really matter, because you can just pick your cosmetic that you want to use for the glass and fill it in. For the build that I'm going to show at the tour or in the cinematic at the start, I used a mod called ARK Structures Remastered. But of course, you can only use that if you have a modded single player or a modded unofficial server. So to keep things easy for the tutorial and for the material list, I'm going to use greenhouse glass for this example. But yeah, feel free to definitely change this out for better looking glass with a cosmetic or a mod. Because yeah, that glass does not look that nice. There we go. So these should be the back of the building for now. Then we can take out our pillars again. We can start filling up a pillar right over here, the equal height as the other one. So 6 in total once again. And of course, we can also connect them into the ground at the bottom. Then over here, we want to add in some beams going across like this. We can also do that over here, going across all the way. And then these sections, we also want to connect up with each other with the beams going across from one side to the next. So just like that. And then we can also have all these extra pillars in between. There we go. Then here on the side, we can just start filling in this wall from top to bottom. And then, of course, the other side is going to be the exact same thing. So we can fill this in all the way. Then here in the middle, we can start filling in these ones on the right side. Then we can continue along the top and fill in the two on the other side. And then fill these in at the bottom. Means that we can add pillars to the side and at the bottom and at the top. Because we're going to have another window right in the middle there. And then for the top layer, we can actually also fill these in with walls because that is what we want for this place. And then we can get started on the roof. We want to take out our roofs. We want to start adding them along the edge like this. Then we want to fill in this one, that one over here. Continue it like so. Fill in that one. And then, of course, along this side, we can just continue like normal all the way up to the corner. And then we can take out our corner pieces, fill in these missing ones by adding in these corners just like that. And then at the end here of the roof, we also want to make sure that this goes around the corner already. And of course, the other one as well. And we can actually already just add some beams around the edge of this roof. just following along the entire shape that we've just created. So yeah, along the entire outside of the roof, we want to follow it along with some beams. Then here on the inside of the building, we want to go in by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we can snap in a gateway, and we want to do the same thing on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then snap in the gateway. Make sure to line it up with this section, so the middle section of the build. Then we can start filling in these walls. For now, we want to make them 5 high in total, so just one lower than the other wall we've created. So we'll just follow along like that. Of course, we can continue above the gateway, and we can then bring it down again on the other side and fill it in all the way until this point for now. So just like that. And of course, this counts for both sides. So we want to do the same thing here on the other side. And this is basically how we're going to be creating the different bays. So we're going to basically split up this build in the different sections by having the middle part and then the 2 side breeding bays. And then this middle part, yeah, this is of course for like hatching, and then you have a breeding bay here and a breeding bay on the other side. Then we want to take out beams, and we want to add them on the top of the wall that we've just created from one side to the next. Then we're going to do the same thing over here, bringing the beam all the way across. And then of course we also want to bring across the beams on the next layer. So we're going to just cross this line all the way like so. And of course on the other side, the same thing, crossing this beam all the way across to the front. And then we want to add in our pillars to make these sections. Now these ones, you actually don't have to have the glass in them. I like to just keep them open, you know, for some nice airflow in your building. Yeah, but you want to just add in all of these pillars like this. Then we want to add in a slope wall right over there, and so the exact same thing is going to be over here. And then of course it means we can add another layer of walls on top to really make sure that this is going to reach up to where the eventual roof is going to be. And of course make it go all the way to the end for now. Then on the other side, of course, the exact same thing. We're bringing this all the way across until the end of the wall that we've built so far. Then we're going to start here on the side of the building. We're going to fill in the first 3 walls all the way up until this layer here. And we want to add 2 of them here at the end. Then we want to go across with the walls just like this for now, all the way until we get to the other side. And then again, these last 3, except this little front one, are also going to be brought up. And of course, we want to go until 5 high in total. And then the last 2, we can bring up all the way. And of course, here on the other side, we're going to do the same thing. So the first 3 walls we can bring up by 5. And then the last 2 we bring up all the way to 6. Then here at the front, we want to do the same thing. So bring up these walls by 5 and the last 2 by 6. And then of course, we can continue the wall along the bottom all the way across from one side to the next. Then we want to find the middle right over here. And we can add 2 on both sides. So it's going to be 5 wide that we can start filling in until it is going to be 5 high. So just like this. And then we can go across over here and over there as well. Same thing, of course, here on the other side. So we want to find the middle 5 and start bringing those up until they are 5 high in total. And then go across to the side like this. Then we can take out our pillars, add them on the sides here of these windows, as well as along the side of the end of the wall over here. So we want to fill that one all the way in. Of course, on the other side, we're going to do the exact same thing. So bring in this pillar and bring in pillars at the side of these windows. So we want to fill those in, have beams going across the top and the bottom on both of these, just like that. And then we can add in a beam going across all the way from one side to the next along the wall here. And then also along the top over here, we want to bring in this beam from one side to the next, all the way like this. And of course, the same thing here on the other side, bringing this beam going across from one side to the other, above the windows and at the bottom of the windows for both of these. So just like this. And of course, finally also here along the top here of this build. So all the way from the one to the other side, just like that. Then we can add in a pillar and we can add one over there. And then every one of these is going to get a pillar until we are over here. And we can fill in the window. So up here, we're going to have some windows to let in some light, and then these here as well we're going to be turning into windows. So we'll do the same over here like that, and then here on the other side we're going to do the same thing. So first of all, we add in all of these pillars from one side to the next. Then we can add in our walls so that we have some nice windows up there. And of course, we can fill in the actual windows here. And then this one too. And that is the side of the building almost complete. Then, of course, we want to continue our roof from one to the other side. All the way across like this. And of course, adding the corner at the end. Same thing over here. So we'll bring around these roofs from one end to the next, all the way across the side, and of course ending with the corner here. And of course we can then also make sure that we add in the beams at the end of the roof all the way through. So following this side, we go all the way to the end, and then here on the other side we want to do the exact same thing, bringing it all the way across to the other end of the building. There we go. Then it's time to look at the front of the building. We're going to start over here. We're going to add in 4 of these right there. Same over here. And then we can add in beams going across the bottom, as well as a pillar here and there. And we can go with a pillar all the way along the side of this wall up to where we already had the pillar for those windows there. So bringing this pillar, we can of course add in the dino gateway as well, and we can add a gate in there. Then we can fill in these windows next to the entrance, and then we want to add in the beams going across the top as well. Then we can start filling in this wall all the way through. Then here in the middle we can continue these walls just like this. We can then have some beams around the bottom here, as well as in these places we can have some pillars. And then we can have a beam going across the entire top of this layer. Fill in these windows up here. There we go. Then we're going to move on to these little sections. Of course, we can have 2 walls going up around this little addition. We can do the same thing over here. So add 2 high walls around all of these little additions, just as we did at the other side of the building. So we're going to add all of these around, add our slope walls on top of them just to build up these supports from one side to the other. And then of course on top we want to fill in our roofs just like this. And then we got our supports for this side of the building as well. Then for these walls, we just want to start filling them in all the way until this layer. So we're going to go all the way until that layer right over there. We can then add in our pillar along the end here too. So all the way up this wall. On the other side, we're going to do the exact same thing. There we go. Then we can have a beam here at the top, as well as one below, and we have a pillar right there in the middle. Then we can bring our roofs again. We can add 4 of them right here. We can add 1 of them right over there. And of course, we can start filling in those corners. So we want to just go around and fill those in like this. Of course, we can have the beams at the top layer of this. Then for these other two breeding bays, we want to first of all bring this wall up all the way. So add 3 more over there in the corners. We're going to do the same thing on these corners over here, just like that. Then we want to bring across a beam on this layer from one side to the other. And then also here at the top, we want to do the same thing. We'll do that, of course, on both sides of the build. So once again, bringing a beam across from one side to the next. Same thing up here, bringing it all the way across, just like this. Then we can have some pillars in between. Same over here. Some pillars around like that. Then, of course, we can fill in our windows above the entrance. We want to do the same thing right over here. Then we can pick some quarter walls, and along this side we're going to have an entire layer of quarter walls just like this. Same over here on the other side, bringing it up all the way from down below to the top. And then on the other side here, the same thing again. So bringing up these quarter walls just alongside here too, all the way up over there. Then we bring out a behemoth cellar door and we switch to the barn doors right over here. And we can add one there and one over here. You could also go for the hangar door if you prefer. But then we got 2 entrances. We want to then take out our ramps. And we can then add in some ramps in between these 2 sides like this. Same thing over here. Add in those ramps so you can easily walk in and out of the breeding pen with your tames. And here in the middle, we're going to do the exact same thing. We also want to add in the ramps so that you can also enter the middle. Then, of course, with the roofs, we can go across the top layer here, following the end of the wall. And the same thing over here to finish that shape going across from one side to the other. Then here on the inside, we can now finish these walls, add 2 more of them, and then a slope one here at the end. And then, of course, here on the other side, it's going to be the same thing. And, of course, over here, we also want to add the beams going across the top of the roof. And on the other side, we do the same thing. Then we want to take out our quarter ceilings. I am going to use wood for this. And we want to start right over here and start bringing this out by 3 on the outside. Same over here. We'll bring this out by 3. And then it should also be 3 here in the front. And we can start filling this entire part in just above the gate. Then we can bring out our pillars and we can add some pillars down from these ceilings back onto the ground. And then we can bring out our thatch triangle roofs and we can start adding them in along this entire shape. And this is going to really bring in that Jurassic Park visitor centers vibe to the place, which I personally really like. I think it's a really nice look. So we'll just bring these around. And again, this is more for visual nicety. It's not really necessary for your build, but it does add a nice looking entrance here. And if you want to add even more to this, you can even have some railings, some wooden railings stick out from the end to really add to this effect. Now that's pretty much the first layer of the building. Then here on the inside, we want to take out a stairs, place it right over here, bring it up by 4, just like this. Then over here in this corner, we want to have 2 ceilings. And then we can also continue this by 3 more to bring it all the way to the top. And of course, we want to make sure that we add in the railings to the stairs so that it's all safe to use. So just like that, we got a nice staircase, and this is your way up to the top. And that means we can start filling in the top. For now, we want to make sure that we have enough space over here. So leave a gap of 2 above the staircase. And then, of course, we can add more railings around that to make it safe to walk around. And now this means that we can start filling in the entire top layer of the building. So we want to just go across and bring this all the way from one side to the next, just like this. And yeah, this is going to be quite a few ceilings that need to be placed, but that means that we get very close to at least finishing the breeding facility downstairs. And of course, we're going to have a little bit of a base up here as well to really make this one stand out a little bit more than it does so far. So for now, we want to just continue filling in all of these ceilings all the way from one side to the next, continuing this pattern everywhere. Now, additionally, of course, if you wanted to, you could have some cellar doors in here somewhere if you want to be able to drop off things into the breeding facility and into one of these breeding bays. But I'll leave that up to you if you really want to add those in or not. For us, we're just going to fill in this entire thing with ceilings. So we'll just continue to place them down until we've done all of it. So not the most difficult part, but yeah, it is quite important because it's going to make the next stage of building a lot easier to have the whole ceiling complete. So for now, we'll just follow the shapes and yeah, just keep placing down all of these ceilings. There is quite a few of them, of course, because it is a decent sized build so that you can easily house multiple Rexes, but even some bigger tames, I think, could probably be held here and be bred here quite easily. So for now, we'll fill in all of that. Then we only have a few more sections left, so we'll continue filling all of this in. There we go. Bring it across over here, and then of course bring this side across as well. Then we have just a little bit more here in the middle before we are fully done finally with all these ceilings. There we go, placing the last few of them, and we have an entire roof of the build done. Okay, then we want to start here at the front and in the middle, and we're gonna go in by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That is where we want to place the pillar, and that is where we're going to be starting the next layer of the build. Then we want to make sure that if we add the triangles, that we add it in the right direction, and sometimes it won't give you the snap point. What you want to do then is add 2 ceilings temporarily like this. Then we can add 3 of these triangles facing the front. So this one should be facing the main entrance of the build. Then we can delete those ceilings again and we can finish the entire circle. And this is where we start the circular part of the base. We can add full ceilings all the way around. We can then, of course, fill in these triangles in between. And of course, on the outside of the main ceilings, we also want to bring these out again. So we want to just go completely around to start building out this circular shape. Then we want to have the full ceilings again on all of these outsides connected to the triangles. So we'll just go all the way around like this. And once we've done that, we repeat this process once more. And you should see that this is almost at the staircase. That is the last layer that we will add. So that is 3 of these triangles on the outside. But of course, we want to finish this circle now. So we'll just continue until we've done this for everything. But that is the correct size to aim for. So we'll fill in all of these sections, and then all we need to do is fill in the last sections of the full ceilings. And then we have our entire circle ready. There we go. Now that we have a full circle, we want to start by adding in a staircase here to this side. So that's at the side of the building, and another one here on the other side. We can also add in our gateways above those ones. And of course the actual gates. So those are going to be the entrances to the base that is on top of your roof. Then we can fill in the sides with some sloped walls, just like this. And then you have a choice. You can just use walls to fill in these sides. But of course you could also use the secret doorway wall. So you can still enter this and maybe hide a generator or something in here. Or some extra storage that you do not want to be visible. Yeah, so you can definitely utilize that space if you want to. Quite easily, but for at least we want to go around adding in all of these walls to finish this shape, which is the start of the main base on top of here. Then we want to go here to the corners of the full ceilings, and we want to add pillars that are too high, and of course also connect them back down into the main ceiling. We want to do the same thing over here. Make sure they're aligned with the main normal ceilings, the full ceilings. Same thing over here in these corners, just like that. And then over here as well. We also want to make sure that we add them over here, so around the dino gate. We don't have to add them above, but only here at the bottom at least. And then we want to make sure that we add in a beam around the entire base layer of this part of the build. Just like so. And following the entire circle around it all the way until we meet back up with the other side. Then we can start filling in these walls with windows. We want to make them too high. So we're just going to start filling in this entire layer with windows, either using the greenhouse glass, but as I said, I would recommend getting a nice custom cosmetic window and using those instead. And then you could technically still build this out of a normal wall, so metal or anything that you like, so that it's still a little bit stronger as well. But yeah, you definitely want to have some nice windows to enjoy the views up here. So just like that, and then we want to continue the beam across the top of these windows all the way around again, just like this, until we get to the other side again. And then we want to add in a layer of normal walls again above these, so that it is all the same height as the gateways to get into this base. So we'll just go around all the way just like this until we meet back up with the start. Then on the outside we want to add in some ceilings, and I'm using wood. I would skin this to frontier wood actually, just as the front entrance that we did. And we want to make sure that we add these to wherever we have the 3 white walls. On the outside we're going to have this layer of wood sticking out just like this. And then in between, we can fill it in with some triangles. And this is going to be the base layer for the roof that we're going to build on top of this. So for now, we're just going to go along the entire outside and add in these ceilings all the way until we have the complete circle. Then it's time to get started on the roof. We're going to add the full thatch roofs over the full ceilings. So you just want to copy whatever is underneath it. So the full thatch roofs on those of 3 for this layer to get started with. And this is of course what is going to give the building those Jurassic Park vibes. Then we want to fill in the triangles in between, but also above the layer that we've just placed to get up to the next layer. And in total we're going to place 3 layers of roofs for now. So we're just going to go all the way around until we get that done. But yeah, this is definitely going to give those Jurassic Park visitor center vibes to the building, which I quite enjoy. I think it's a really cool look, and of course very fitting for ARK as well. So definitely a cool look to your base, I'd say. There we go, just going all the way around, adding these roofs in, and almost done. Now that we've done this, it means we can go back to the full roofs and we can go around again. As I said, we're going to go 3 layers of roof for now. So this is going to be, for now, the final layer that we start filling in. And we can go all the way around just like this. We can then add in the triangle pieces all the way around. And we can just continue this until we've done this entire section of the roof. There we go. So yeah, it's already getting quite big, but it's still looking really, really cool. Then along the edge of the roof, we want to add in more pillars. So we just go around like this, adding in pillars all the way around the base. Here in the middle, we want to continue the pillar upwards until we reach the right layer. And then we want to start by adding in half of the circle. Then we can snap our staircase to it. And we can just go all the way around until you get back down to the right layer, so that you have an easy way to get up to the top layer here. Then, of course, we can start filling in the circle. So we want to just go around, add in the right pieces of right ceilings in the right spots. So basically, you want to copy whatever we did down below with the triangles and normal ceilings until you've made your way around the entire base. Of course, with the gap that we need for the stairs is going to be slightly different. But yeah, we just want to fill in this. Leave this little bit open for a nice entrance to the staircase. So yeah, we can still easily access this and go up and down from there. Then along the edge here, we want to add in our windows. So we just want to start filling in all of these sections like this. So that once again, even from up here, we can enjoy the views. And personally, I've made this my bedroom, of course, because it's a lovely view from up here. Then we want to make sure that we start adding in these pillars again around these sections. And I would start with adding them around this singular wall, but then also we can add them in the middle of the other walls. Just want to make sure that the orientation of the pillars is all right. Then we want to turn into metal beams again, and we want to go along the top here of the walls to finish off these windows all the way around. Then it's time to once again add in our roof. So first we're going to create a layer here with these ceilings that again are going to follow the same pattern as we've used for the rest of the building. So full ceilings over here. Then start filling in the gaps in between with some triangle ceilings all the way around until we've completed the circle, and we can start with the roof itself. So once again, we copy whatever is underneath. So if there's a full ceiling, we want to have the normal roof on top. So we'll start going around adding those in all the way. Then in between and on top, we can add in our triangle pieces. So just like that, we can start filling them all in. And now we're just going to continue the roof all the way until we've reached the top layer. So this is the final bit for the main building and the breeding facility. There we go. This one again. And of course we'll have some normal roofs again. All the way around to start with. And then of course above the triangle pieces, we can add another layer of the full roof. There we go. And then we can fill in the triangles in between, just like that. And then of course the top layer is also all triangles to finish the shape and to finish that roof. And you definitely get strong Jurassic Park vibes from the building. Now, of course, we got the main build done and we have only the walls around the compound left to do. I'm not going to build the entirety of the walls. Instead of that, I'm going to just build it on one side. And of course, you can do the same process on the other side of the building as well. So we want to start right over here by making a wall that is too high. And we'll make it all the way here until where it meets those squares. And for now, that is the way we're going to start. We're going to start adding in these wall sections in between the cubes that we have, just to get us started. And we just want to kind of follow this along everywhere, just like that. And yeah, we want to just make sure that they're too high everywhere. Now, in the case that you might have some areas where the foundations are a little bit lower, what you want to do is just continue the wall on the same height and then just continue walls down until everything is covered up. For example, if I had it here, I would do this just to cover up those lower foundations. But for now, I am very lucky that most of this is actually all on the same height. So yeah, we just want to continue filling all these sections in. This section as well, next to the gate, you want to make sure that you fill in that completely. Then we want to take out the slope walls. We want to start adding them right over here in the corners like this. So this is the one right next to the gate. Then the one here at the end, we also want to do the same thing. Now we're going to run into that issue. So what you want to do is you want to add a wall over here, then we can snap to it and we can continue that wall. You could add some more walls underneath to cover that all the way up, but yeah, we can continue the same pattern. Here on the side, we're going to rotate and we're going to add the slope walls over here on these. We're going to do the same thing over here for this one. So we add the slope walls like that. And then for the final one over here, once again, we want to rotate back to where we started. So we have the slope walls over there and over there on these ends. Then we want to add in our roofs on top exactly like this. So we kind of just want to follow the shape that we've laid down now by adding in those sloped walls. So we can follow those along just like this. Adding in more of them over here, just following this shape. And this is how we start shaping these outside perimeter walls, which do give a nice secured facility feeling to your breeding pen, which I think is quite appropriate. So we want to just add them to all of these. And then again, in case you have any kind of height changes, this is where you just want to fill it in with walls. Then over here, we can actually go up by 2 walls on the end, just like that. And we can also start filling in this shape a little bit more. So we can add in these walls just like that. And we can continue these walls up closer to the main structure so that this is all filled in like so. We can do the same thing over here. We can continue filling in these. We can make that too high and that too high, just like that. And then of course we can fill in the sides of everything that is possible, just like that. We want to of course bring these up by 2. And then like this section is giving me a little bit of trouble, of course, because of the lowered foundations. So we'll wait with that for now. We'll fix that later. And then here again, we want to make these too high. And then we can also add in these sections next to it. Just like that. And we can continue these walls just a little bit further to make them blend in to these structures. So the same thing goes over here. We can add in these walls just like that. Those. And all the way around like so. And then the final one here at the end, of course, we can continue these like that. We can have 2 high walls over there, filling in these shapes just like this. There we go. Then we're gonna create even more shapes. So here at the top, we want to have 2 roofs going in like that. We'll do the same thing over here for the corner. And that is something that we will continue over here. So we'll add in the roofs like this and around the corner over here as well. Then we can start filling in the rest of this. So we want to add in the slope walls around the shape first. And then we can fill in these final walls like that. Same thing over here. So first of all, we want to add in these slope walls like this. Then we can add in the final walls. And we'll just continue over here. So fill in the slope walls and then the full walls. Then again with the slope walls first and fill these in. And now the problem will fix itself because you can just fill in whatever is visible so that from the outside now this part is also complete. And we also want to add in the walls over there and over here. And then for this final section, once again, we want to add in these slope walls over here and have some full walls in between. And then we want to just finish this by adding in the ceiling on top of all of these wall sections. And then we should get our perimeter looking quite nice already. So we'll just continue these ceilings all the way on top of the end here. Just like so. Oh, and actually we need to make these sections just a little bit higher before we add in the ceiling. So we want to raise them up by 1 more before we add the ceiling in. Just like that. There we go. So they stand out a little bit more from the normal wall. So we just want to add in those sections, and then of course top it off with the ceiling again. So here as well, same thing all the way around, and then place back the ceiling. Now the final one, and in all these walls, and the final ceiling on top. Then we want to take out our pillars and add 2 pillars in the middle on top of all of these little towers that we have created. Just like this. Then here on the outside of the wall, we want to add even more security. This looks best if you use the chain link and barbed wire cosmetic. So this you would turn into barbed wire. You want to make sure you place them correctly, because otherwise the barbed wire is not going the right way. But if you snap them to the outside wall like this, it should all be totally fine. So if you use that cosmetic, first of all, you want to use the barbed wire here along the outside on this little railing that we've now placed. But if you have both of them, so also the chain link, we can add in a chain link fence right at the back of this layer to add even more of a secure feel. And then on top of that layer, once again, you can have even more barbed wire to really make it feel like you're trying to keep everything safe and protected. So I would definitely recommend getting that. It's a free cosmetic. It's quite small to download, but it's really cool for a base like this to add some really cool details. So yeah, we just want to add in these sections everywhere. And once again, the full walls is going to be chain link fence. And then on top is going to be some barbed wire to make sure that your Rexes are safe, or people are safe from your Rexes, whatever you want to go for, right? So we'll just continue this last sections and fill these in all the way through. Then only this section is left, and there we go. So that should definitely keep your Rexes safe. Now, additionally to all of these defenses, the final detail that you might have seen that is really cool is zip lines. Now, you will need a bunch of zip lines, but if you have zip lines between the pillars like this, and I would then also do one over here, and maybe even one over there. You can kind of decide yourself how many of these you want to add, but that does add a really cool effect to the place. You can decide whether you want to go higher or you want to go lower, but if you do that all the way around, you get a really cool looking fence. So just for reference, this is what I did. So I added one on the split of the pillars, one on the middle, one in the lower one, and all the way here. So that was a little bit closer to the chain link fence and the barbed wire, but you can see how cool that effect is as like a really safe fence for your perimeter. So I definitely recommend going for that. And now that we're here anyway, you can see that I skinned everything to this really cool concrete look. That is the Klinger Concrete custom cosmetic. It is unfortunately a premium one, but in my opinion, well worth it if you like to go for these Jurassic Park inspired looks. Otherwise, of course, you can definitely play around with different cosmetics or just build it out of different materials to make it look good. And then just to add a little bit more, I also added in some of these spikes around the end. If you want to do that, what you do is you add in some roofs around the outside, and then you place the spikes on top of that so that they're really, you know, leaning forward. I found that to be the best look for those, and it also adds a little bit of extra shape to your main building. But yeah, that's not too difficult. If you want to do that, all you really have to do is add in these. Of course, it also kind of depends on your landscape. This might not do too much, so you can also just place these spikes right around the outside, depending on how much material you want to use, of course. Just the spikes will definitely also do. So there we go. That is how you build the Rex breeding pen. That is definitely heavily inspired by the Jurassic Park Visitor Center. So you have a safe compound for all of your breeding, for your Rexes or other creatures. There's definitely a decent amount of space on the inside, of course, with a big compound ground that you can use to have some of your tames safely here, but also, of course, these breeding bays. So my babies have grown up and they are not that small anymore, but yeah, you have some big breeding bays on both sides for some different projects. You can do hatching and everything else here in the middle, and of course you've got your main base. So let's do a quick little tour, but yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't yet. So you have the big compound that definitely has plenty of space for your tames around. You have these little corner sections as well that you could have some tames. So a lot of space all the way around. And then, of course, we got the main building. Now, the main building is mostly built, of course, around breeding and being able to do a lot of breeding on the inside as well, safely. So you've got these big breeding bays with some cryo fridges and some food for your tames, and you've got 2 of those to use. So whether you use it just for Rexes or you want to do other breeding, I think a lot of creatures will easily fit inside and will easily be able to be bred here. And you can definitely also use this as a main base. Then the middle section is meant to be used for all of your hatching. You can have some goods here as well, store some of your eggs, your kibble, whatever you need for all of your breeding needs. You've got some more room back here, of course, to use as well. But alternatively, if you want to use it as a main base, this is of course where you could also have some more of your storage, etc., crafting going on if you wanted to. Then on the roof you have a lot of space as well. So for your flyers, you can easily park them up here. You can have some more crafting and storage on the roof if you wanted to. And then you have your beautiful main building right up there as well. As I said, the wood that we used, I changed to the frontier skin. I prefer that look a little bit. And the same thing over here down below. And then we have the main base itself. I actually changed all of these floors to the frontier skin because I like the look. And then we have a bunch of the crafting stations here on the inside, as you can see. So it's a fully functioning base. We got some storage out here as well. And then of course we've got our staircase up to the top layer, which is a little bit of a bedroom up here. So yeah, you can definitely use this as your base. You still should have plenty of space all the way around and have a really cool compound for all of your breeding needs. Anyway, that's going to be it for this tutorial today. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and feel free to leave a suggestion for what breeding pen you would like to see next for which creature specifically. Thank you for watching this video and hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.